What is the solution then if we want to not see this sort of dollar crisis, if we don't want to see the sort of crazy inflation into the next few years? What do we do?
Yeah, well, the Fed should not just taper QE, it should halt it right now, just stop doing it. Not just gradually reduce the amount of QE, that's adding gasoline to the fire. Maybe they're adding less gasoline, but you don't put out a fire by pouring less gasoline on it. You got to, stop that and put water on it. So the Fed has to go cold turkey. Just right now, no more QE. In fact, we need the reverse. We need quantitative tightening. The Federal Reserve needs to start selling treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. It has to let interest rates go up, and not just a little bit. They need to go up a lot. And of course, when that happens, the whole house of cards literally is going to come crashing down. The Fed has to let stocks crash, let real estate crash, let bonds crash. None of these guys have any integrity. They don't give a damn about the country. They just want to make sure that they don't get the blame for the collapse. So, as I said, we kicked the can down the road. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to get away with it, because ultimately, the price that we're going to pay for not doing the right thing is going to be enormous, because we are going to have a currency crisis. We may have hyperinflation. And all of that is much worse than just letting the markets reprice to a realistic level and letting investors lose money and forcing the government to cut spending. If we continue until we have, hyperinflation, we wipe out everybody, and the losses are going to be far more painful for a lot more people. But obviously the time will run out at some point if we don't do something. But there is no way to avoid hyperinflation without a lot of pain. Now, of course, hyperinflation will be even more pain, but we have to be willing to bite that bullet and do it to ourselves rather than waiting for the crisis to do it to us. I think if you were listening to my recent podcasts, I was just comparing the rhetoric or the propaganda that the Soviets used to rationalize, shortages of goods in their country and the relative abundance in the U.S. Because back in the 1950s or 1960s, the Soviets would see images of stores in America, supermarkets with all sorts of products on the shelves, But in the Soviet Union, the supermarkets, the shelves were empty. There was nothing there. But the people were being told that, the Soviet Union was, the workers' paradise, and America was where the evil capitalists exploited the workers. And so everybody in America was poor, and all the Soviets had so much more money. And so it was confusing for them when they saw all these products. And the way the Soviet Union spun that is they said, well, that's because Americans are so poor, they can't afford to buy anything. And so the products just sit unsold on the shelves. But in the Soviet Union, the workers have so much money, the minute products are on the shelves, they buy them right away, And then they would say, and the American problem is a very difficult problem because the Americans will never have enough money to buy those products. However, here in the Soviet Union, since we already have so much money, well, eventually there'll be products to buy, but, you've got all the money. And, of course, that all made sense until you really thought about it, because the hard part is producing the products. Anybody can print money, right? And that's what the Soviet Union did. They printed a lot of money, but there were shortages of everything because nobody made anything. And now the U.S. government is trying to tell Americans, oh, the reason prices are going up is because of supply shortages. It's not supply shortages. It's a surplus of money. You just can't print money and give it to people and expect there to be goods to buy. The goods have to be produced. Demand has to come from supply. If you just print money and create demand, you can't get supply. Demand can't create supply. Supply is what creates demand. Just because people want something doesn't mean it's going to magically appear. Stuff has to be produced before you can consume it.
Could you tell us what is stagflation, and are we experiencing or are we at risk of any sort of stagflation?
Yeah, we've already got it, I think. And of course, it's the worst case scenario. It's the Fed's worst nightmare. So they're never going to admit it. Yeah, and it's interesting too, because the reason we even call it stagflation is during the 1970s, we were faced with a situation where we had high unemployment and high inflation. And the economists of the day, Keynesian economists, thought this was impossible. They believed that the only way you would have high inflation is if you had a strong economy with low unemployment. It was thought that high unemployment in and of itself meant that you would have low inflation. There was a trade-off. They talked about the Phillips curve. And so this completely perplexed the Keynesian economists because they were confronted with something that their textbook said couldn't happen. And so then they came up with the name stagflation to describe this thing that they thought was impossible.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
Do you want to know one thing about crypto? I made over 3000% in profit in a few weeks. Fact is, the traditional financial system, the traditional money system makes you poor, not rich. If you want to earn $500,000, $1 million, you have to wait until you're 50, 60, 70 in the traditional financial system, and you probably will still be broke. And you will be old. This is not a sexy combination, as you can imagine. But the question is, how can you start in crypto and make these profits? Where to invest? Where to start? My name is Gunnar and I'm from Germany, as you can hear, and things are a little bit different in Germany. More about that later on. Fact is, there are lots of different cryptocurrencies. It's a gigantic universe where beginners and professionals get easily lost. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There are 7 key steps you need to follow to become successful in this market. You have to know them, and if you fail one of them, it's literally impossible to succeed in this market. Just an example, one of the key points is your exchange, and one of the biggest are, for example, Binance and Coinbase. These are trusted and well-established exchanges, but, and this is a big but, you won't find the super profitable coins on those exchanges. The unknown super profitable coins that get gigantic profits are not traded on those kind of exchanges. They are traded on much smaller insider platforms that are barely known. And I can tell you what those super secret exchanges are and why they are so profitable. And another super important thing are the right information sources. The point is, the internet is gigantic. There are hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels, blogs, pages, and much more. And there are also market makers and influencers. For example, Elon Musk, he is not a crypto guy, but the moment he recommended Dogecoin, it went through the roof, to the moon, so to say. But why did he recommend it? Where did he hear it from? He didn't hear it from newspapers. And believe me, he is listening to someone. But you have to know who, and you have to react before he is reacting. This is really important. And these are only 2 of the 7 steps you have to follow in order to be successful in crypto. And if you want to know all of these steps in much more detail, and if you want to have a comprehensive checklist, here's what you should do. There is a link below this video. Click on this link and you will get the opportunity to subscribe to my channel. Click on the link and you will see a video where I explain the next steps. So see you soon. Click on the link now. I'll see you there.